Hello everyone, Joe from Central Jersey Conrail and N-Scale. Welcome back. This is going to be our operation session recap. So as you know, we just wrapped up running our second op session. It's been about a week now. I just want to jump in here and give everyone a quick update and let you know what was taken out of the session. So, you know, I have given everybody a little bit of a preview because I did live stream dispatch during the session. I think that was received pretty well. It came out pretty good. You know, the night before I had some computer issues. The laptop that I use for streaming, it went down really hard. It's a software issue. So hopefully I can get that thing fixed before the next session. Otherwise, we'll have to come up with an alternate means of streaming the videos. So more to come on that. So the session overall, now that I sit back and look at it, it went really well. I'm very happy with it. You know, the day of, in the beginning, it seemed like it was faltering and was going to turn out badly. And you know, most of it I can attribute to me. I'm not faulting my operators because, you know. So for the operators, this session we had Steve the Ringer, we had Chris back, we had Mario and Mike, and we had Big Bill. I had a schedule picked out where the schedule was going to run the transfer trains in. We're going to switch out the yard and get the trains out. In my mind, I had imagined that it was only going to take an hour to an hour and a half to switch the yard and get the trains ready. Unfortunately, Mike bid on the yard operator's spot, and I applaud him for doing that. He went into the yard blind. It was the first time he'd seen the layout. You know, Mike is an extremely experienced operator. He's been operating model trains probably since before I was born, and you know, so he went into the yard blind, not really understanding the layout, but he still forged ahead. And the way I had set the schedule up, it just dumped so much work on him in the beginning that we're all kind of just standing around hinging on him, and I think that was way too much pressure to put on Mike, especially someone new to the layout and someone taking an important position like the yard operator. So, you know, then we finally got our first local trains out at about the 2.5 hour mark. Operations, once the main line got running, was running really smooth. The crews got out, did their work. They found no major issues. We did have some running issues with a couple freight cars. Again, you know, they're just popping up in the cycle as they come around, and I just got to pull them out and start working on them. The big thing I made a huge boo-boo is, so you know, when I like to clip my packets together of all my car cards, in the rush to get the session kicked off, I forgot to give the clips back out, and poor Mario's walking around with a handful of car cards and dropping them on the ground. So I really apologize to everyone at the session for that. I'll make sure that that's going to be on the checklist now. They can put out the clips. So yeah, it was kind of, in retrospect, looking back at it, it's kind of funny now, but I'm sure they were kind of a little frustrated. But so that was one thing. The other thing is, you know, I think more was gained after the session, in our like post-session debriefing, I'll call it. It wasn't so formal. It was more like we're just, you know, hanging around talking. And you know, the biggest thing that we picked out is the schedule. The schedule just not going to work. So we came up with the plan is to have the yard pre-switched out, have all the trains staged. Yard master goes in and just starts pulling the trains out, calling the crews, and sending the locals out on their way. Once the last local gets staged up in the ready departure area, bring up the first transfer train, the Oak Island bound, the train from Oak Island into Brown's Yard. So this way, the yard master can start switching and classifying the yard. Then, when the crews come back, he can reclassify, build the Oak Island bound train, and send it out. So then the yard's half done. And then to wrap up the session, once all the locals are in, is bring that Camden, the train from Camden in, and then have the yard master classify that train, send the Camden bound train back out of Brown's, and wrap the session. So you know, mulled over it, what their recommendations was, and yeah, that's what we're going to do. I've instituted that. So that's going to be a big change for next session. Now, in the interim of all this, I've since clerked the layout, turned all the car cards, classified the yard. It's all ready. The layout, as we're seeing right now today, is ready for the next op session. I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to leave it alone. But I did make an additional change on my own. So last time we were together during the ops blowout, I said that, you know, the SA-37 Extra, the sand trains coming out of Clayton, the hopper block, I let that go through the cycle. So I went to staging. And then it kind of freed up the yard. And then I was looking at the yard and I'm scratching my head. I'm like, you know, I'm running a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule. And then I have a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday schedule. So the Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday schedule, I have one train that we were just holding in the yard and not sending out anywhere. So during the session, Mike was switching a block of cars around in the yard, and it was just kind of cumbersome, extra work for him, taking up a yard track. And I'm like, wait a minute, we don't need that. That's just slowing the whole, it's gumming up the works. So what I've done is I've eliminated 2 blocks of cars out of each cycle. And so now that's less work that the yard master will have to do, less space, and it frees up a bunch of new cars so I can fill a bunch of gaps on the SAO2. And I'll have more cars to start another cycle so that I can work a new cycle in on the waybill system. So on that 4th cycle, we can have a fresh set of cars that nobody's seen now. So now I have extended the cycle of cars, so you don't see the same cars coming around. So I think that's going to work out really, really good. I'm looking at it ahead. I've been playing with the car cards and looking at it. I think it's going to work out really well because there's just no need to have a block of 13 cars sitting in the yard just to go back to staging. So that's the big change, and I think that's going to free up a lot. And every way I look at it, it's a win-win situation, and I think that's pretty good. So that's another big change. So for next session, you know, I'm looking at adding a couple more positions. I've got a couple more operators who's expressed interest that they may be coming to July. So I've kind of pushed it out now from 5 to like 8. So, you know, there's 8 possible spots, and, you know, some of the spots can be eliminated if we don't have the people. So I think we're running now at full tilt, and I think it's going to be a really good session. On paper, it looks really good. So we'll see. But, you know, every day, you know, you get into that session, and those everything that looks good, it kind of unwinds itself in the middle of the session. So you just got to roll with the punches. And, you know, I was a little frantic there at the session, but then once everything calmed down, I was like, all right, now it's making sense and now it's working. So you just got to, like I said, you're doing a layout of this size and you're doing an operations of this level, you got to be able to just be flexible and roll with it. And the biggest thing is listen to the operators. That's the biggest thing I've picked up is my crews of, it is my layout, I want to do it my way, you know, but you got to step aside. How you have 5 different perspectives looking at the layout, and they're coming forward with some really good information. They're not nitpicking. They're not being, you know, oh, this needs to be moved, or that's not. You know, they're giving some real big ideas, and I'm like, wow, it's stuff that I'm going over my head. And you know, from watching the videos, I'm pretty up on planning and looking ahead, and it's just stuff you just never think about. So that's the biggest thing I got that I'm learning out of this whole experience is you just gotta learn to listen to people and you learn to do it the way they recommend, because your way is not always the best way. And so, you know, it is a huge milestone. It's our 2nd operating session. So everybody's like, why is that a milestone? Well, you know, because that's a milestone for me in my book, because so far there's been no critique of the track layout. You know, Mike did have some recommendations down in the yard, and we sat down and we were, or not sitting because you can't sit here, but we were standing over in the yard and we were working it out in our minds. And, you know, when Mike was talking about moving one of the turnouts to extend track 3, and then we looked at it and he's like, oh yeah, I see why you did it this way. He goes, I don't think you can change it. So, you know, that was pretty much the only big change that kind of came up. But in retrospect, afterwards, we look back and the way I did it is really the only way at this time. So with that being said, we're ready to move forward. I got two sessions under our belt, no major problems with the track configuration. We're going to the scenery. It's time. I got all my supplies this week. Right after I get done shooting this video, we're going to get rolling on our scenery playlist, the first episode. So I'm very excited with that. I can't wait to get going on scenery. It's just another big step for this layout, and I like doing scenery. It's a lot of fun. You know, track work. It's tedious. It's cumbersome, but it's an evil necessity of model railroading for obvious reasons. You don't have track, you can't have trains. You don't have trains, you can't get scenery, and it's all a domino effect. So, but yeah, so we're rolling right into scenery right after this video. So that's really all I have for you. Just want to jump in here, give you my thoughts, tell you what's going on, show you a couple of little video clips. You know, I didn't get to do much video. You know, Mario so graciously, you know, volunteered to run the camera for me to get some video footage, but I'm like, no, I want you to operate. That's why I want you here. My operators, I want them to run the trains. I want them to have a good time. I want them to enjoy the layout. That's my whole sole purpose for doing the op session, to have them come over and run trains. I'll do the video. But unfortunately, with doing dispatch duties and all the problems that occurred during the session, I really didn't get that much footage, but I got a little more than last time. But also what I've done is I've decided that I'm going to put the dispatcher's position out for bid next session. So if anybody wants to take the dispatcher's spot, I'm going to relinquish control and let them run the layout. So we'll see how that goes. Otherwise, that's all I have for this time on Central Jersey Conrail and N-Scale. Make sure you like this video, and if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, please follow us. The scenery playlist is coming up. Also, new social media for Central Jersey Conrail and N-Scale. We've started an Instagram account. You can find us at Central Jersey Conrail N-Scale. Just do the hashtag and go check us out on Instagram. I've been doing a lot of posts, and it's been going pretty well. And just another little outreach into the social media platform. And go check it out. Tell me if you like it. Otherwise, that's all I have for you this time, and we will see you on the scenery playlist. All right, thanks. How'd we do, Bill?
We did well, Joe. I have to say that the layout was, when you first come in, this is my first time seeing the layout, and walking in, like I said to you earlier when I walked in, it's a lot bigger on the video, but it's actually, it's not a tiny layout, but it's a small layout in the room that it's designed for, but there's a lot of action packed in it, a lot of work involved in doing it, so it's the right size. So I had a great time, too. You know, I really did, and thank you so much for inviting me here. It was really a pleasure.
Do you think you'll come back again?
Do I think I'll come back again? Yeah, I'll come back. If you have more snacks and stuff. I'd prefer a 6-foot hero next time. With the Italian thing, not the American thing.
I'll tell the CEO. We'll get on that for you.
Okay. I'm just throwing it out there.
All right, buddy.
We got a starter.